shorter. Thanks, that's great. Well, I'm Katherine Baril, and I have the honor of working in this community as your local county extension agent. And WSU Cooperative Extension is one of the land-grant universities. And about 5 years ago, somebody told me that agriculture was dead, and that made me mad. So I thought, how are we going to protect water and salmon and working families on the land? And we set about a very purposeful practice in WSU Jefferson County to try to convene local food and farm events. I every day feel bad that I was raised as a lawyer, not as a farmer. I cannot tell you what the beetle is, but I know you share that information all the time. And how I try to use my office is to convene the best brains we can and the best community support to try to really encourage people to buy local. That's Kitsap County going, yeah! They know what it's like to have a good program. We have started a local food and farm economy group. We convene monthly meetings where the traditional rural landowners could meet with the young farmers, share a meal, build relationships, and start talking about how we are going to try to plan over the next 10 years about a 60% transition in our rural landscape. We are the oldest median landowners in the state. Most of our large farmland is owned by people over 55, 60 years of age. While they have an intention to continue farming, the reality is that much of it has already been vested in subdivision. And the only way that we feel we can keep land in production is to make it economically viable, to really demonstrate that it is better being used for local food production than it is for golf courses. Because the pressure is always the family's going to have to make that decision, how to feed their kids, how to put their kids through college, and rather than regulation and preservation, we've chosen the option of really making the land economically viable. Trying to do that, we have demonstrated there is about a $250 million food industry, and somebody just pointed out to me that doesn't count all the barter trade and off the table. That's actually just what's reported to the tax folks. And we have your tax forms out there for you, so you can start filling them out. We brought Ken Meter from the Leopold Center for Sustainable Ag out last year, and he did an economic assessment of Clallam and Jefferson County, because we really see ourselves as a bioregional food system from Vancouver, Bellingham, Kitsap, Jefferson, and Clallam. About half of our food dollar is spent outside the home, restaurants, dinners, food to go, and about half of it inside the home. We have gone from 5 years ago, 1% of our food was eaten locally. Was direct farmer to consumer. In 5 years, we have doubled that amount to 2%. Somehow that wasn't quite enough, and I think Ken could see my jaw drop and my little kind of, oh, 2%. And he says, well, Katherine, that's still 4 times the national average. So you're doing pretty good. But my goal is that Burlington, Vermont has a 10% local food production. And I think 10% is well within what we can accomplish in the next 10 years. And 10% would mean $25 million a year extra in our local food economy. And with that, you know what we could do in terms of internship training, buying critical land, starting cooperative equipment, starting seed cooperatives, supporting our nonprofits. So really, I would hope that one of the goals that you all talk about today is what are we going to do as a community? What will you do as farmers to lead the way to increase our local consumption to 10%? It's very, very doable. There are restaurants ready to buy, there's hotels and hospitals ready to buy. One of the great things about today's conference is it's right as Bon Appetit is taking management of this facility for a commitment of 50% of their food served here at the State Park will be local and organic. That's a tremendous increase in demand. So while we have this chicken and egg thing, first you sell the market, and then you sell demand, and then you sell production, and then you sell demand. Well, right now we have much more demand than we have production. Much more demand than we have production. And both Bon Appetit, the farmers market, and the food co-op are very concerned whether they'll have enough food to sell next year. So this is the time of year for you folks to get together and talk about what new crops, how you're going to share equipment, how we're going to try to deal with housing and interns, and really increase that production. One point I was at the farmers market, and somebody said they were leaving the farmers market on their way to Costco because they couldn't afford to buy local food. And that really discouraged me this year. And then I happened to get an email from my dad, who's not a particularly political guy, and he said, geez, Catherine, look at this farm bill. Now, my dad's a car dealer, so for him to even look at farm email is like outrageous. But that tells you about the demand for local food, I think. He said, look at this farm bill. It's $45 billion subsidy to corporate food. Imagine what you could do with in your community with local food base if you had a $45 billion. So I think what we need to do, and we're there being partners with you as the co-op and the farmers market, trying to educate the consumer that the cheapest price is not a good economic indicator. Ooh, electricity. The cheapest price is not the best economic indicator for our food system. It isn't for how we evaluate our kids. Oh, this kid makes the most money. He must be the best kid. We don't do that. Oh, this is the best wife. She's got the best car. We don't do that. And why should we do that with food? And in fact, I think that food, if we really did the research, that I'm hoping to do this next year, we can demonstrate that per pound, frequently, our crops are cheaper at the farmer's market than they are at Safeways.
Yes.
And I